Okay, hello and welcome to our mini course on the Year of the Dragon, the Universal 8 year.
Who are we? My name is Kalman Wolfgang Lulek. I am a holistic health coach and have been studying all aspects of health for the last 4 years. I specialize in breath work and am an advanced instructor trainer for Oxygen Advantage. I'm also a practitioner of NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and I love every aspect of health. I think health should be treated as a whole system, and the approach to that system is very diverse.
And I'm Katie O'Donnell. I am a certified Ayurvedic health counselor. I am a student of the Gene Keys in human design, as well as a self taught numerologist. And I am a lover of all things holistic, all things mystic.
And we have come together to share our combined knowledge on how we think you can live the best dragon 8 year. And Katie's going to talk a little bit about what that means.
Yes, so we'll start with the 8 symbolism in numerology. And so the number 8 symbolizes this harmonious merging of divinity and humanity. The heart center is where these two realities converge. So the 8 is linked with the law of cause and effect, also known as karma. And we can literally see this in the symbol of the 8, where what goes around comes back around. 8 emphasizes the significance of heart-centered living. It is through such an approach that our lives can fold authentically, bringing forth a sense of depth and magic. And conversely, a life centered around the mind and ego keeps us entangled in external systems and cycles of samsara, which are basically these patterns that have been passed down to us from our lineages or that we developed in our childhood experiences. And so, as the successor to 7, which in numerology is known as the truth seeker, the 8 not only embodies the wisdom sought by 7, but also brings forth and manifests that truth into the material world. So, this is really the bridging of spirit and matter.
I also want to mention briefly that how did we get to the number 8? In basic numerology, we just take the combination and add up all the letters of the year. So we're moving into 2024, and so 2 plus 2 plus 4 equals 8. So that's how we got here.
Yeah, and so here I just have a image depicting this merging. In tantric philosophy, this is known as the coming together of Shiva and Shakti. And so we can see Shiva on the top here is descending, and we have this Shakti, the feminine energy, ascending, and they meet in the middle at the heart chakra. And so also listed, we just have some high and low expressions of the 8. On the high expression, we have this inner power, abundance, ambition, self-confidence, pioneering, and so on. And then our low expressions, we have this power over. It's this egotistical energy. It can be manipulative, domineering, superficial, greedy.
So next we go into the actual dragon symbolism and how is that connected through this 8 year? It's really represented through the zodiac signs. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the dragon is associated with things like vitality, strength, and good health. It's often used as a symbol for potent and life-giving energy. So we're really stepping into this massive year of the wooden dragon. It's all about growth, all about this life-giving energy. It's linked to the concepts of qi, which represent that vital life force energy and flow within the body. According to the Chinese calendar, the year of the dragon is considered to be particularly auspicious, and is believed to bring good fortune and prosperity. The dragon is sometimes considered a symbol of the Empress. It embodies the nurturing, creative, and protective aspects of the divine feminine. It also carries the energies of dynamism and assertiveness, which are expressions of the divine masculine. So it's both these energies coming together. The dragon represents a powerful, vital, transformative, and creative force. It's really seen as a bringer of positive transformations and renewal. This year supports us in channeling our creative life force energy into action. It's a big year, 2024.
And beyond.
And beyond.
So yeah, as Common mentioned, this is the year of the wood dragon. So in traditional Chinese medicine, there's 5 elements. They are earth, water, fire, metal, and wood. And so this particular year is associated with the wood dragon. The organs that are associated with wood are the liver and gallbladder. The emotions are anger and frustration. The color is green. The taste associated with wood is sour. And the attributes of wood are growth, flexibility, and assertiveness. And so really this year is going to ask us to tap into our anger and to use that as fuel for more love. So we really want to allow our anger to move us forward rather than becoming consumed by our anger, allowing it to overtake us. We'll be using our anger as fuel for more love, for more good in the world. And I feel that this year is really going to be about setting firm boundaries with ourselves as well as with others. So this is a year to learn and exercise your yeses and nos.
So what does that actually look like? What we can engage in terms of practices and activities are things that promote flexibility and growth. So things like yoga, Tai Chi, fitness in general, working out, moving our body, and learning about breath work and how to utilize breath work, spending time outdoors, connecting with nature, practicing more deep breathing exercises, things that are going to support the liver and the gallbladder, the organs of this year.
Yes. Okay. So we're bringing in the Gene Keys perspective as well. If you're not familiar with the Gene Keys system, this definition comes right from their website. The Gene Keys system is based on a fundamental code of consciousness and is inspired by the Chinese I Ching. The Gene Keys are an inner journey whose purpose is to transform our core beliefs about ourselves, thus raising our lives onto a whole new level of awareness. And so it is essentially a map of our DNA and the frequencies contained within the DNA. It also is really correlated with the science of epigenetics. And so the reason why we put the Gene Key 8 into our presentation is because it really encompasses the energy of the dragon of this year. And the 8 is called the diamond of the self. And in the Gene Keys, we look at each key according to 3 different frequency bands known as the shadow frequency, the gift frequency, and the Siddhic frequency, which is also kind of like the highest enlightened frequency. So this key is all about authentic self-expression, and its shadow, it's mediocrity. And this is really about when we look at mediocrity from a repressive nature, we see the energy of giving up on dreams, becoming a victim of the mundane, being afraid to really express truth, and really getting sort of caught up in the responsibilities of life and forgetting who you are at your center. And then on the reactive side of this, we also have this compromising of spirit to some aspect of the system. It really makes me think of those who sell their soul. And there's a lot of rage that can be contained within that. And the dilemma of this is imitation, which I think is a really common theme um, that can come up, especially when it comes to authentic self-expression. We tend to look outward to others to see how are they expressing themselves? How can I be like that? Which has its pros, you know, it's okay to be inspired by others. But this sort of takes it a level deeper where you're losing your own authenticity, you're losing your own creativity in that process, and you're really just trying to be like everyone else. It's like keeping up with the Joneses, you know?
I also want to add something fun that I loved reading about this key is the paradox within it. And it's the paradox of unity. When we think about collective consciousness and how we evolve as a society and as a collective, what does that actually look like? And in this key, it talks about how really diving into your own uniqueness and being, like she said, your authentic self, and everyone at that moment being their authentic selves is when we can actually create unity. So it's not like us coming together and being all the same thing and all the same person. It's us developing our unique individual selves that allows us to come together as an actual collective. So it's a fun little paradox that I loved about this key.
Yes. Okay, so next, I want to touch on the solar plexus, or it's called the Manipura chakra in the Hindu chakra system. And this chakra is associated with the themes of integrity, commitment, and determination. And so this chakra is located at the navel center. Some of us may also kind of feel it here in the diaphragm area. I kind of really feel it all in this area. And it's associated with our digestive system, the element of fire, individual power, and purpose. And so this center here holds so much of our physical vitality and power. And when we have chi or prana, life force energy, moving freely in the center, we are empowered by this energy of transformation. And when this area is blocked, we may experience imbalances such as aggressive ambition or heightened ego, the pursuit of personal power, and also powerlessness. And so I really feel that in this area is where superiority and inferiority complexes live. This is our core, you know, our center, and where we derive our sense of our I am, and we realize our divinity and the power of our I am presence. And so Manipura translates to the jewel that needs no other light to shine. And I think that's so beautiful. So the reason why I feel that this chakra is so important is because it's connected to the digestive system, it's connected to power. And really, this is the space where all of our undigested food, emotions, and life experiences are stored, where they then can move out and go into the organs and other areas of our body. But this is really the place in our being where we hold all of our undigested anything. And so it's really important that we learn to create space.
So how do we create space? After experiencing and learning the Oxygen Advantage system, I have a little bit of information I'd love to share on how to create space from a biochemistry lens, but also from a spiritual and physical lens. So how to create space: breath work, carbon dioxide, nitric oxide, free oxygen, and restoring the lymph. Understanding how free-flowing chi, prana, and energy resolves and dissolves, and how it is a part of our innate healing intelligence. Life force is directly connected to the two energy centers in the body known as the kidneys. In traditional Chinese medicine, these organs are essential for filtering out toxins in the body, and when the kidneys become overloaded and are unable to process toxins, two things happen. One, the adrenal glands, which sit right on top of the kidneys, get stressed, and the nervous system responds by putting the body in a constant state of a sympathetic nervous system states, which is the fight or flight nervous system state. And two, the body stores toxins in fat and muscle cells in order to protect the organs to keep you alive. So this is like a self-defense mechanism. That's what's creating fat, unwanted fat in the body. So how do you clear the kidneys and remove toxins? Understanding, understanding the biochemistry of breath is the start. Learning how to balance your blood through breath can allow you to activate the parasympathetic nervous system state and increase baseline levels of CO2 in the blood. When these levels are increased, oxidized tissues in the blood become oxygenated through the increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide acts as pressure in the body to remove toxins. It's very simple in a way. It's literally just about creating pressure internally in order to push out toxins into our lymph, to allow lymph to start to flow. When CO2 increases, it causes what's called an allosteric effect, allowing for the hemoglobin molecule to release its inhibitions of oxygen. So when you breathe in oxygen, it gets bound by hemoglobin as it converts into blood. You need carbon dioxide as a partial pressure to remove oxygen from hemoglobin. So this partial pressure allows oxygen to release. And when it's released from hemoglobin, it becomes free oxygen. And that is what we can use for our organs, our tissues, our cells. It promotes efficient oxygen delivery to oxidized cells. So those cells that get oxidized that have toxins in them aren't oxygenated. They have no oxygen coming in and out of them. This free oxygen causes these cells to release toxins into the four major detox pathways: urination, defecation, perspiration, and exhalation. And improving your ability to remove these toxins on a day-to-day basis and incorporating breathwork routines increases your ability to improve lymphatic flow in general. Your day-to-day processes and your ability to absorb and remove toxins in your body become easier. So this process of eliminating toxins opens up lymphatic drainage and improves the pathways of detoxification, allowing for more space in the body. When we have more space, we can take in more energy. So to continue, how does this connect to the spirit and the emotional aspect inside of things? A byproduct of increasing CO2 tolerance is an increase in heart rate variability. And HRV is associated with better emotional regulation. When we talk about increasing pressure, we create this buffer in our mind and in our body, in how we respond and react in terms of emotions, in terms of just life in general. HRV is the variation in time intervals in between successive heartbeats. So it's the variability in between each beat. Higher heart rate variability is generally considered a marker of a healthy and adaptable autonomic nervous system. So this is big because having higher heart rate variability means you can train your autonomic nervous system to be more efficient, to recode in a way that you find is best. Improved heart rate variability can result in, like I said, autonomic nervous system balance, stress response, emotional flexibility, cognitive function, heart and brain communication, as well as mind and body connection. So it's really fully connected to how we are spiritually living in this world. When it comes to conceptualizing the breath, I mentioned we must think of it in terms of pressure. When we fully understand the principles of the biochemistry of breath, we can learn to create a buffer for breathlessness. This buffer creates a metaphysical space that allows our nervous system, our mind, and our heart time to respond instead of react.
Mm, all the good things.
So, additional techniques that liberate the life force energy are listed here. There's a lot of different ones.
Yeah, so many different avenues to explore when it comes to working with prana and life force energy. I put a little key next to the BSM, breath, sound, and movement. I find that those three things are what have really helped me in getting in tune with my energy and feeling how my energy flows. So incorporating that into practices can be really helpful. And then the next thing that I wanted to mention is just the 5 koshas. So kosha translates into layer or the 5 sheaths of the being. And this comes from yogic philosophy. So this is just a really interesting way to view the different levels of the being, from the physical to the energetic, emotional, mental, to the wisdom, or kind of like the higher mind. This is where you're tapping into intuition, to our bliss body, our divine being, our divine body. And so there's lots of practices here that you can connect to and tap into for each layer. And something I wanted to mention is that this image depicts the bodies as sort of moving further away from the body. But this is actually a process of coming closer to the center. So all of this healing and liberating is just as much about ascending, or it's just as much about descending, coming deeper into the body, as it is about ascending. And so, yeah, we're really actually moving closer to ourselves, closer to our center, closer to our core. That's where we realize who we truly are.
So this brings us into the next slide. And what we want to talk about are kind of the tangible things, the more practical ways that you can bring together this inner work, create habits and healthy lifestyles around these 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars are food, sleep, and energy. According to Ayurveda, these 3 pillars must be honored for optimal health. So we have a lot of information to share on these 3 pillars of health, and we found a lot of cool practices that can help you can help to integrate and really embody those energies. So the first is food.
Yes, so we have 8 healthy food habits that you can tap into, just to really optimize not only digestion, but also like the way that you commune with your food and just think about food in general. So we have this first yeah,
Yes.
this first bullet is prakriti, which prakriti is nature. So this is the nature of the food. What does the food taste like? What is the energy of the food, the physical effect? So that's really like thinking about, what is this food? How is this food going to affect my body? Is this food heating in nature, or is this spice?
The density.
Yeah, what does this food taste like? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it salty? You know, different tastes invoke different qualities within the being. And a good rule of thumb is to think of like increases like. So for example, if you're feeling real heated, maybe you're feeling that anger of, the liver and gallbladder is a little irritated and you're feeling that anger. it probably wouldn't be a great time to eat a bunch of chili peppers or to douse hot sauce all over your food. That would be a really good time to look at what what foods are cooling. Maybe I should consume a cucumber or some coconut water, just as examples. So this is just a way to start thinking about the nature and the energy of your food and how it's affecting you.
The next one is processing. So when we think about processed foods, what is done between most food is processed. In fact, almost all food is considered processed because it's not eaten directly from the ground. So processing is, kind of the time and what has been done to the food in between harvest and consumption, because it impacts quality. A food that is still on a tree branch in the ground is still considered alive, and it has pranic energy to it. And so we want to be as close to that as we can. So we want to really consider what is being done to the food and how it's being processed. Also, we can look at things like preserved foods. And if those foods are meant to be preserved on a shelf for a long period of time, it's likely that it's lost a lot of its pranic energy. There's been additives to it, or things that have been added to it to keep it more fresh for longer, but the freshness isn't the life force energy. It's sort of masking it and potentially even depleting it.
Yes. And so then also we can think about food combining. So this is just similar foods taken together at a meal support digestibility. So just as an example, fruits are really best eaten on their own or at least 30 minutes before a main meal. And yeah, this is sort of, I think kind of intuitive, you know what foods kind of go well together or what foods are kind of like each other.
Yeah, it's important to, like she said, for fruit example, if you combine certain fruits with denser foods, it can cause fermentation in the gut and can cause things like gas and bloating, things we want to kind of avoid when we're looking to take care of our gut. And then the next thing we want to, number 4, is all about quantity. It's all about really understanding and feeling the body when it's full, like not overeating, eating to the point of like a satisfactory rate, but not in the point of like I said, overconsumption. We don't want to feel full and then continue eating. So taking into consideration what time of day we're eating and how we can portion our meals accordingly.
Yes. And another Ayurvedic principle is really following nature and like the patterns of nature and eating the largest meal midday when the sun is at its peak, which makes sense that that's when our digestion would be at its most fiery, its most optimal. And then sort of eating our lighter meal at night, which is typically not what most people
do in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, like usually dinner is like the main meal. So that's just something to consider exploring and experimenting with, is eating the larger meal midday. And then we have habitat. So local foods that are from the same environment as the consumer. So this is really just about, supporting local. What is growing in the environment that you're in? Most likely those foods are going to support you, like there's certain foods that grow in the winter time in the
region. Yeah,
exactly. And so really kind of just looking into what is growing in my region. How can I support local? Maybe going to your local farmers markets or just sort of investigating a little bit more into what's growing. And then I put here SOUL, which stands for seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local. Of course, we do what we can, and we can't always do all of the things, but just as much as you can, look for food that's in season, that's organic. And you know, the more people purchase organic, the less the more cost efficient it will become over time. Unprocessed, as we talked about in processing, and local.
Yeah, and so that ties right into the next one, which is seasonal foods taken fresh and consumed at the right time of day, light at night. We've sort of mentioned all of these; they kind of overlap a little bit. The next one is conscious dining. So remaining aware and alert through all phases of consumption and digestion. And there's a lot that goes into this. You can really pay attention to how you're feeling when you're eating. Taking your time to chew is super important for digestion, for saliva production, for that saliva in and of itself. Salivating before meals can actually help aid in digestion, can help break down the food. In addition to that, I want to talk actually a little bit about breath. And we want to be aware of how we're breathing when we're eating. Are we inhaling our food? If we're inhaling our food, we're going to have some gas in the body. We're going to be burping or going out the other end. Like it makes a difference in how calm your breathing is when you're eating. Also, being aware of how certain foods, processed or unprocessed, denser or lighter, how certain foods affect your breathing. So be aware of how blocked your nostrils are, or how open they are after certain meals. And if you need to do a little bit of breath work accordingly to make sure you're continuously nasal breathing. And then,
Yeah, and digestion starts in the mouth. And also, even you can extend this into like, how are you cooking your meals? You know, are you cooking them in a hurry? Are you angry while you're cooking them? Or like, are you putting love into your meals and intention? So that's part of it as well. And then finally, we have self-responsibility. So you decide what you eat, when you eat, how much you eat. So be happy with your choices. But really, this is just about, you know, being conscious. How do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? And a great rule of thumb here is kind of following this 80-20 ratio when it comes to our choices. You know, 80% of the time, if we're choosing foods that really nourish us, make us feel good, then, you know, 20% of the time, if we want to indulge in that cake or whatever, then that's okay. And there's no shame, there's no guilt in that, you know.
yeah, and a big emphasis on those energies and those emotions. Shame and guilt in terms of what you're even deciding to buy is what you can think about when you're in the grocery store. How am I feeling as I'm buying this? Am I going to enjoy it, or am I going to feel shame about how I'm eating it, about when I'm eating it? Am I hiding the way I'm eating it? So guilt and shame are something that don't need to be around the food space, and we can keep those emotions kind of clear from that. We can enjoy our digestion because less amount of stress impacts how we digest food. It impacts how we digest it, not just food, but emotions and thoughts and a lot of things. So we want to just be kind of clear and gain awareness around those emotions. So next we're going into sleep, and I love sleep. I'm a big sleeper. Sleep is sleep is all about detoxification. We actually are doing most of our detoxing during sleep. It's there's a special hormone called melatonin, which is produced in the brain. It's a mitochondrial targeted antioxidant. So it's actually the most powerful antioxidant that's known to man. And it is responsible for regeneration and healing the cells during sleep, as well as detoxifying the body. So an important thing to know about melatonin is that it's inversely proportional and has an inverse ratio to cortisol. So when melatonin rises, cortisol lowers. When cortisol rises, melatonin lowers. So we have to create a healthy balance between these two hormones in order to optimize sleep, understanding the importance of light on the eyes in the morning before 11 a.m. If we can get light on our skin and eyes, we can optimize cortisol levels if we can be outside during those times. If we can utilize the energy from cortisol to use exercise in terms of exercise, so we can deplete certain other levels of energy and induce feelings of tiredness. So when we utilize cortisol correctly, melatonin will rise correctly. And melatonin, like I mentioned, super important. It's all about lymph. Detoxification is lymph. So lymph moves during sleep, specifically in the brain. The brain actually has its own lymphatic system. It's called the glymphatic system. And it detoxifies and maintains healthy brain function for cognition and focus. So if somebody has not the best hormone ratio in terms of melatonin and cortisol, they may experience things like brain fog. They may not be able to do all of the things that they want to at the computer or at their job or whatever they're trying to accomplish. They may experience some sort of brain fog. Additionally, the liver, also super important during detoxing, plays a major role in processing and removing those toxins in the body, and does most of its work during sleep. And it actually continues after you wake and goes until about 11 a.m. And so it's sometimes it's important if the liver is overloaded to practice actually some sort of fasting to allow the liver to process fully, but not always. So sometimes it's about knowing when your liver is sort of inflamed, and there are signs of inflammation in the body. Additionally, we want to talk about REM sleep and non-REM sleep. So there's two different sections in the night, about 3 hours each, and this is when healing of different kinds happens. So REM sleep is responsible for consolidation and organization of the subconscious mind. So emotional regulation happens during this time. We have so many thoughts, so many emotions, so many things happening in our day-to-day basis that we need to kind of consolidate and compartmentalize and work through the emotions and the thoughts that come up. And so this REM sleep is super important for that. And it's during this time, it's when we actually dream the most. So it's those dreams, and dreaming is a good process for, or a good sign that we are processing our emotions and our thoughts. And then non-REM sleep. It stimulates tissue growth, helps repair muscles from both exercise and normal wear and tear. So this is super important. If we want any type of energy in the next day, we need to have that part of non-REM sleep. So both of these in combination create a lot of healing. And then we'll get into a little bit more about sleep hygiene. So I have here a little bit of information on the sleep pack, which I'm going to talk a little bit more at the end of this presentation. The sleep pack involves more information on how to optimize your sleep in the best way. It incorporates things like a white flower oil practice, which is essential oils that are meant to help open up the nasal passages, practices to improve CO2 tolerance, binaural beats to induce certain brainwave states, to induce dreaming, to help the brain go and transition from wake states to sleep states, mouth tape recommendations to help train the autonomic nervous system to mouth breathe 24/7, as well as a supplement stack that's super important for remineralization to aid in the detoxification process. So there's a few quick things that I love to talk about when it comes to sleep. We talked a little bit about light, so turning off overhead lights by 8 p.m., using candles, dimmers, low-level lighting is like really great. Even just like little lamps, we want to just like turn off that stuff. Screens, we want to reduce kind of screen time by 8 or 9. There are other ways, if we need to be on screens, to remove blue light or create more red light on our screens or on our phones. Being in bed by 9 or 10 p.m. at the very kind of latest, and starting the sleep process, starting to wind down, avoids additional cortisol spikes. I know that during my youth, and not even that long ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I was, staying up watching Netflix on my phone and would hit another cortisol spike, and then I couldn't fall asleep for another 3 hours. And that's what that happens. That's what that is. That's that cortisol spike. So learning about that and feeling into that's super important. And
That's
then
when you get those midnight munchies
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And it's like, you
Yeah.
get that second wind and you're ready to take on the world at midnight.
Yeah.
It's like, go
and
to bed.
and you got work the next day at like 8 a.m. And then this one is really cool. I love this because I felt the difference almost immediately, and it's sleeping without clothes on. Clothes, in a very subtle way, restrict blood flow and lymph. So sleeping naked can actually improve circulation and can improve lymphatic flow. Um, Avoiding too much mental stimulation, like intense conversation, news. We want to kind of like really just kind of quiet the mind. Aromatherapy is a really great way to get to induce those states of sleep. Things like lavender and frankincense, chamomile. There's other ways we can use those too, including baths. You can even use aromatherapy in combination with baths, or use uh, like bath mixtures, coconut oil and lavender, things that are going to calm the body down in a in different through the different senses. So the smell, the touch, and then, like I mentioned before, early morning sunlight on the skin and eyes, 1 or 2 hours after sunrise, is essential for resetting circadian rhythm. If you can even get up kind of before that and just start to get going to be outside, even better. And then avoiding caffeine consumption after 3 p.m. is a really good one. There's a lot of information about how you get those cortisol spikes with caffeine, and we don't want to set cortisol to spike at a certain point in the day when it's like supposed to be kind of going down. And then the last thing is a dream journal. The dreams are sort of a window into our subconscious, and can be a very, very powerful tool for uh, recognizing and learning about yourself. Yeah, yeah. So sleep hygiene 101.
Yay. Okay, the next pillar is energy. And so, just something kind of fun to think about is we are consciousness, and consciousness projects itself onto matter in the form of light and geometry. And it's really this geometry that's like shaping our entire reality, creating our entire reality. Beneath the foundation of all things is, right, this sacred geometry. So it's kind of fun to think about yourself as this being that's really affecting the geometry of everything around you, and your energetic state is what's either creating order or disorder within the geometric structure of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to mention something kind of just building on that. We are mostly interstitial fluids inside our body, right? We're actually what's called structured water, which is H3O. And H3O, structured water, has a specific property to it called piezoelectricity, as in that the water itself inside our body holds memory. And memory in piezoelectric form can actually take shape. So you might have seen people talking to water, or people playing music around water, showing that the structure can change based on the energy. Building on top of that, I want to mention this sort of frequency chart we have here, which is all about energy, frequency, and vibration. And I want to just briefly talk about those terms. So what does that actually mean? We hear a lot of that out in the Instagram world and in the social media world. Vibration. We are always vibrating. As human beings, as atoms, as cells, we're always moving and shifting. Nothing is actually still. There's always movement even within stillness. We're always vibrating. Frequency is what is that? So the vibration vibrates at a certain frequency. And when it vibrates higher, certain emotional states are associated with those vibrations. So we look here and we can see at certain stages of enlightenment, we are at very, very high states of vibration. So this type of vibration, the level of vibration dictates our energy. We have more energy the higher we are vibrating. If we are stuck in lower vibrational states, which it can be very easy to get stuck because they actually kind of loop into themselves a lot of the times. We can find ourselves being fatigued, being weighed down. It feels like a massive weighted blanket. Things like
energy gets bound.
It gets bound, it gets dense. It's all those feelings of shame, fear, grief. It's very, very heavy. So we have to understand our energy, and we're always vibrating. And then there are various ways to increase our vibration.
Yes. And then just something I want to add with this consciousness diagram is that in the middle, we have courage. And that really ties into the year of the dragon, this 8 energy, is that to move into higher vibrational states, we must first enter into courage. We must build the courage, enough courage to really embrace our authenticity, embrace ourselves, and to allow ourselves to move into these higher states that is our birthright, truly. So just some ways that we can work with our energy is by tapping into our 5 senses. So that's our taste, touch, smell, sight, and hearing, our sound. And when we really become intentional with what is it that we are taking in through our senses, we had mentioned food. What are we eating? What are we consuming? What are we watching on television or on our phones? What kind of music are we listening to, or what are we listening to in general? Who are we allowing into our space? Who's touching us? It's just really important to think about these things. And even I'm thinking about like smells, like, are we dousing ourselves in these artificial fragrances, like, so really becoming aware of how we are caring for and nurturing our senses, what we are taking in through our 5 senses, which actually then allows us to tap into the higher expressions of our senses, which is known as the clairs. So we have like clairvoyance, clairaudience, olfactory,
Yeah.
And so, when you really take care of your senses, then you are able to tap into like the higher, more mystical aspects of them. And then just thinking about energetic input and output. How much, again, are we consuming? Like, are we constantly on screens? Are we constantly taking in information? Are we constantly listening to the news? Like
fear-based propaganda. There's a reason why it's called that.
And even like, could it be that we actually are taking in really positive information, but it's like, are we giving ourselves breaks? Are we allowing ourselves to sort of empty out and just reconnect with ourselves without anything external coming in at us all the time? And that's the same with output. Like, how much energy are we giving? Are we constantly giving to the point where we are depleting ourselves or emptying our cups so much that we don't really have anything left to give to ourselves, as well as creating, issues maybe in our life because we no longer have enough to give. We're just giving from an empty cup. This can create all sorts of challenges within relationships, to ourselves and to others. And then our sexual energy, which really is our life force energy. This is our creative energy. It's our vitality. And our sexuality is sacred. And it's something to really consider and to really contemplate when you're thinking about this pillar of energy is, how are you using your sexual energy? From sex is an energy exchange. Who are you having sex with? Do you want their energy? inside of you? Do you want to be exchanging energy with that person? For men, your semen is your sacred life force. That's your seed. Are you being intentional about masturbation? How much are you releasing on the daily? These are all really important things to think about.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of kind of dysfunction when it comes to sexual energy and the knowledge around sexual energy. Porn has sort of taken over a lot of our generation and the generations that are coming up. It's important to understand sexual energy and how to cultivate it and how to take care of your sexual organs, how to show them love so that they can provide you the energy to live and manifest your own life. Uh, and there's a lot of different things you can do in terms of breathing, in terms of actual physical massage work. There's things like
Exercise and
exercises,
movement.
movement, yoni boxes. There's so many tools out there that can help you cultivate that energy in that way.
And just really to get in touch with it. Because when we're in touch with it, that's when we can really work with it consciously. And I think that's when we start to appreciate it more.
Oh, and I also want to mention just around that topic how there is also a lot of lower frequency vibrations associated with sexual energy in general. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt being kind of expressed and emanated around sexual energy. So it's important to understand where that's coming from too, and then how to have the courage to kind of do it the right way.
Or just like work with that energy. It's not necessarily doing it like the
Yeah.
right way, but like processing it so that you can really step into understanding that your sexual energy is in fact sacred and a gift.